I don't think I can see it.
Oh, maybe it's just me.
Yeah, it's just
Hello,
you.
everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I was laughing and we just sort of started on where, um, with what I use for recording counts down, but I think I can only see the countdown. So Pep wondered what I was talking about. So, grand rising, grand afternoon, grand evening to everyone. Pep, thank you for joining us back. I'm really excited to talk about some of the, at least for me, new things that you're working on. I'd really like to spend maybe the bulk of the time um, kind of sharing and talking through the things that you're working on. So
Wow,
um,
I appreciate that.
I've, eh, of course, I've been really fortunate to sign up for your, I guess you'd call it newsletter or email communications.
Yeah,
And they seem like they're almost daily coming through. And I have joined, at least looked at a recording. One of your classes, I guess, as we're part of that. And you and I have known each other for, gosh, a year, maybe a little longer
yeah.
at this point. So I feel like I probably have a kind of a decent understanding of your approach. But this feels different in a really really good way. Um,
Thank
so
you.
before I kind of start like riffing on the things that I'm thinking about it, can you can you maybe lead us all through either the evolution that got you to wanting to do what you're doing now, like specifically for the dojo and for communication and other things? Does it just feel like a natural progression, or was there like an inflection point? Because if it feels, for me, it feels like something changed in good ways. But I want to hear your words.
Yeah, it's a lot of things together. So there's a natural progression angle where you follow a spark, and then it starts to reveal itself to you what it is, right? So I can talk about that, and then there's also an element of honoring the self and like what works business wise, what do other people want. Um, so I started this about 10 years ago, actually, maybe even 11, almost, yeah, 11 years. And I had no idea what I was doing in terms of like starting the website, right? I was studying it, through experience before. Um, so I just wrote. I would live life, I would reflect, I would do experiments, see what happens, I would write about it. And and that's where the initial part of what I'm doing now actually came from. So back in the very early days, where all I knew was I am writing stuff, and not what I would do with it. People would reply to my emails spontaneously. So it was an RSS feed of a blog, and I had
Right.
comments turned off. And people would reply and say, "Hey, next time, I'd love for you to write about this." And then sometimes I wouldn't know what, like I would have no experience, so then I would go out and live the experience until I figured it out and I write about
All
it.
right.
So that was
Right.
going on. There was this relational element, and then occasionally people would also tip me, like they would know that I wrote the article for them, or I wrote it for someone else, but then it landed so well with them, they would send me a tip back. So that was kind of the original model. But then there were also seasons where I wouldn't write much because I was learning or I was processing something. Like, not, you don't learn everything in a month, right? Sometimes you need to take like a few years to go through a lesson, and then income would fully drop. And in one of those periods, I also met my life partner, and we started hosting community events at home in person. Um, and in those events, what we really tried to figure out is how do you get strangers, to spend one evening and then have them connect so deeply that eventually they develop friendships or even relationships that go deeper than what people are used to, without making it too forced, because that kind of works against it, right? If you go to a networking event, you're ironically a little less likely to make friends because of the format. Like
Right.
everyone's a little bit like they expect that you want something from them, or they've heard the approach before, anything like it. Like some of them are really good, by the way. It's not a, but the idea is to make it happen organically. Um,
Yeah.
one of the things I found at the time was I wasn't drinking. You're also not drinking, right? Um,
Right.
yeah. So
Yeah. It's
one of the things,
been a little over a year.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you were ever into drinking games back in the day when, as a
Oh
teenager.
yeah.
So, so I had a real
Well,
love for them,
what's
and
that?
why do I like them so much? Well, they give people an excuse to show parts of themselves that they normally wouldn't. And if anyone would
Yeah.
dislike that part, they can say, "Well, I'm just playing the game," like Or there are also games where there's a contract. Since everyone's more vulnerable, sharing more things, it's
Right.
okay. We're all indulging in this. So the mechanics of drinking games, I realized they're really good, except that there's the drinking part that kind of
Right.
sabotages it to a degree. So I
Right.
started figuring out like how can I make games that you know promote this same sort of connection or vulnerability sober and potentially way better. Um, so that happened. I'm kind of laying out the little pieces of the journey, but then I learned about circling. And it was at that moment the deepest connection I had felt to people from the get go. So, circling is one of the practices I work with. Um, Not the official circling approach, I use a slightly different approach. But um, I thought, how can I turn that into games? And I found out that people were already doing this all over the world. In fact, circling developed as a game from a wider community of people who were figuring out how do we make games that get people to connect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, of course, I started meeting all those people and be like, "Hey, I'm doing the same thing. I want to learn from you. Trading notes, and all the while I wasn't writing, and I started hosting in-person workshops, kind of like the community events we did. So that was the main thing I was doing. Um, And at some point, I realized I could do these online. I started doing them for free to serve the Twitter community. And I think you and I were in a few of them. You joined a few of the free. Uh,
I did.
exactly. And from there on, I realized that there was a limitation. And the limitation is that every group is different every
Yeah.
time. So you need to rebuild the trust. And in a way, you need to always create an experience that is accessible at any skill level. For some people, depending on where you're arriving, it can be very intimidating if you would be thrown into the deep end with a group that's all uh, really comfortable with deeper connection.
Yeah.
So then I made a kind of course out of this. It was 12 weeks at the time, um, which used this format of like sessions with teaching and games to learn skills about connection, communication, relationships, self awareness, all of that, presence. And it was a closed container. So it was always the same group twice a week. And the level of practice deepened over time. And there are three things that were a little bit of a downside about that, because there's a lot of things great about that. All the people who were in there, they developed a degree of competence that you're unlikely to encounter um, randomly about relationships. But one of them was like at the end of all of that, there was a degree of distance between, well, now if I go into the world and all the other people you know, in general, have not taken this course, how do I deal with that? Right? Like,
Yeah.
how do am I now always the one, responsible for, finding other people at my level, or like, what do I do? And this distance, I didn't really like that, because in the end, like, if you get really good at relationships, the end result should be that you can be with anyone, not only
Right.
people who are also good at it. Otherwise, something, didn't really work. And I realized it was exactly that. It's the fact that the container was closed made it go much deeper, but it removed some of the chaos of encountering random people who have different levels of awareness, different attitudes, and could also stop any group bias from happening, right? Like the culture would constantly get shaken up by new people. So I realized closed container didn't really work. It did work, right? But not in the sense that I would, where there's an equality
Well, tell
among.
me, can you expand a little bit on what working or not working may be,
Yeah,
maybe based on what you wanted the result to be.
yeah, yes, very good point.
So
Yeah,
is the result of an individual to have a raised awareness, or is the result like, tell me about the result a little bit.
yeah. So it's two things, right? There is a side of self-expression, self-awareness, and becoming really authentic and understanding who you are in each moment, expressing that, like taking responsibility for your experience, how you engage with others, making others see the real you, communicating your wants, your needs, boundaries, and in a way that isn't really like therapist speech, but very natural. And then there's another element, and that's about honoring the other in the relationship, because a relationship is two people or more, right? So giving space for everyone you meet to be as they are. Um, and the latter part, if you practice it only people who are also really good at the first part, there's an
Right.
element of natural challenge that disappears, right? And then you go into the world, and suddenly all you see is um, things that you didn't build any experience or resilience towards. If you go and then you interact with your coworker, and neither have they taken this course nor would they ever be interested, the things that you learn shouldn't have become an obstacle in that relationship. If they
I
become an
kind of just,
obstacle, that's not the right way to go about it.
well, I just thought of a game, unless you've already created it. So here would
Mhm.
be the game. Um, could a game be that this group, this closed container, if you will, if you took on certain parts? So in other words, you and I could interact here, Pep, like we've known each other for the length of time we have, and very open, very kind of freewheeling conversation. And then the next game is you stay where you are, and I become more closed off. I'm mimicking being closed off. I'm simulating someone out in the wild, so to speak, so that you can build up that resilience. I think that's a
Yeah,
good word. I think you mentioned that. So that could be a game that you could incorporate into it
yeah.
if you haven't already.
This is exactly like. Thank you for that, by the way, because you also show that you understand the format. Like this is the type of thing that we would do inside. Oh, here's a problem I encounter socially. Now
Right.
let's play around with it. Yeah. So this is exactly it. Um, so to end my story, because it's been like a 10-minute story for now, so I want to drive it home, is that I realized I want a format that is both. So where you have progressive skill practice and there is a constant inflow of new people
Yeah.
who come in at all kinds of levels of experience. And I'm hesitant to call them levels because it's not like there's a ranking among people. Um, but there is, yeah, how much experience do you have with this skill, and have you built up in terms of capacity? And so that's why I shifted to the dojo. I used to be a martial artist as a kid, and I did it competitively as well. So I spent a lot of time in the dojo. That's the training hall.
Right.
And what's really cool is you arrive there, and there is some hierarchy of experience, right? Like you're there with a white belt, there are black belts, but there's no the black belt is not considered a better person than you.
Right.
They just said like it's equal and the skill levels differ and everyone interacts with each other and that's how you get better. And you can have this experience either where you're a white belt and you just get completely floored over and over and that's how you learn and you try new things. You can also have this experience where you're at one of the later stages and then you encounter someone completely new to the martial art, and it's like the patterns that you're used to interacting with are those of people trained in the art. And so the
Right.
new person breaks that pattern and it actually requires you to be sometimes a little bit like there's some unpredictability in it. Um, I remember, there were people that would come in from, they would be complete newbies in judo, which was what I was doing, but they would have a lot of experience in other martial arts, including some which would be illegal in judo, but they wouldn't know that, right? Because they're new. So that can also happen. Somebody's doing this mean move that you didn't see coming. And I think relationships are very similar. People,
Well, I agree with you, and what comes to mind totally different from martial arts, but poker. I'm not a gambler, but I do like the game. If money isn't involved, and there's a certain amount of predictability for people who have played poker a lot because you're playing probabilities and there's a consistency. Well, if you have a newbie like me who comes in and like is just having fun, back when I was drinking, and I'm like, I'm not here to win money. I've spent the $20 to get in, and it doesn't matter what happens. So I'm playing, you know,
hmm,
just just to
yeah,
play, and I do things that are very out of turn. And sometimes I would win, sometimes I would lose. But I remember one particular game, I was up really high because I kept playing in a way that was just fun to me, but it was really upsetting the people that played typically because they couldn't predict what I was going to do. I was just riffing, and it really bothered them because they got them out of their rhythm. So I
yeah,
wonder,
yeah.
transposing that to like martial arts, I guess that would make sense. You're like, this person should do this, but they're doing that. I don't, does that make any?
Yeah, makes so. I think maybe even in poker, it's even a better reference because in martial arts, there's still some degree of, well, I'm as a black belt, I'm more skilled and I can still neutralize what comes up. But poker is a mind game and a reading people,
Right.
and so it sounds like they have like a theory of mind about poker players. And since you were there for fun, they had a hard time, struggling to map how is Adam
Right.
playing? Like, what's his end game? What are his values? Because you're just playing a
Right.
game that they either don't understand or forgot or can get into. Yeah,
Well, I even remember doing it was not my best moment. It's not my highest self. But at the end, where I had almost all the pot of this one particular game, I'm like, you realize I'm not going to take these winnings, right? And they're like, what do you mean? It was almost like it was almost sacrilege. I said, I'm just going to give it back to everyone. We'll just split it up. We'll play again. They're like, no, if you win, you have to win. It was like I
amazing.
was violating the unwritten illogical rules of playing
Right.
poker. And
Yeah,
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 I wasn't invited. I wasn't invited back. You can guess why.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. I get it. But yeah, beautiful example. Yeah, and so rounding it up, so that's what I ended up doing. I made a dojo for relating online. So it's kind of the same. There's an ongoing curriculum, and that's how you progress, but it's self-paced. You don't have
yeah,
to join every week and like now there's a 3 hour lesson. It's just videos, you watch them, but then twice a week there are sessions, and that's like the training hall, where you go and you practice the skills by interacting with real people, some of whom are really good at relating, social skills, anything like it. Some of them are there because they are not. Others may be really good, but they come from a completely different mindset, right? Like if maybe someone that has been through years of skill of sales training, they have developed a type of social skill, and it's just an entirely different approach than what I teach. You can also encounter that, right? Um,
yeah.
yeah. So I really like that in the sense of making it holistic and preventing the bias that can come with the type of work that I do and that I've also seen happen. Um, yeah, so
Yeah,
that's the main format now.
I've really enjoyed this format of yours, and I think this is the first time we've really talked. I mean, I've probably responded to a couple of those emails, but the thing that felt different to me, and maybe it's just because I haven't seen as much of your style writing, this might have been it all along. Just describe it for the audience. Pep will send usually about once a day or something like that a particular thought, and it might seem like a simplistic thought, but the way he can break that down and talk through it, it makes it very consumable, whatever level I feel like you might be at. And levels, to Pep's point, are not a ranking. And and you establish a relationship, Pep, with anyone who responds, back to you. You'll either incorporate it in a writing or whatever else. Now that's free. You give access to everyone for that. And then there's different access points. If you decide you want to attend one class, that you pay a certain amount. And for me, at least, your opinion might be different, but for me, it's not about the payment. You're doing this to obviously earn a living, or at least to a certain extent, with some of the other things you do. But you're getting access to a different layer. Um, it just so happens that's behind a paywall. And then if you
Sure.
do kind of the larger thing where you have access to everything, it makes sense. And where I'm going with this is kind of like the post you made about probably an hour or 20 minutes ago or something. I just saw it when I looked out there, where you were talking about you have to understand and embrace disconnection in order to understand connection. And the difference, disconnection can sound really bad, but it's really just the opposite of connection. Same thing that hate is the opposite of love. Hate is inverted. So by allowing people the opportunity to be able to like kind of see what it is that you're leading them towards, and decide, what, I can stay right here with the things that Pep sends out. I feel really good. Maybe I'll send them a tip at some point. If not, these are things for me to kind of think about. And if they want to go deeper, they can go deeper. I
Yeah.
think about that even just in life. Well, as I was listening to your recording of the couple people that had signed up, including me, I just wasn't able to join. I could feel myself in that conversation. The pieces were resonating with me, but I actually felt things that I would have wanted to either say or at least think about, that maybe would have changed it, and not necessarily for the better in a conversation. And what I I really like your concept of trying to talk about seemingly simple or mundane things and making it fun, so that people can get an aspect out of it. And I think you're tasked with a pretty challenging thing, to be able to talk to people at all levels, wherever they're at, wherever they want to connect or wherever they want to disconnect. The last thing I'll say on disconnection, I mentioned this game of if you and I decide to have roles, and you're the open-hearted person that you are, and I choose to just close off and just sort of talk to you half-heartedly, I'm practicing disconnection while you're practicing connection, which actually helps you and it helps me. Like, for
Yeah.
me to invert my mind and be disconnected, I got to really think through how that feels, what I'm trying to do. And I think that builds up a great resilience. So I love that you've um, had a willingness and made time to do this. And I'm sure the people that have already signed up for it, and that will, have got a lot of benefit of it too. Regardless of where they're trying to go, whatever result they're trying to get to, the movement and the progression of that is really, really beautiful. So thank you for offering this up to the world.
Wow. I really appreciate you. Well, first of all, taking the time to go deep on this, and naming that, and your appreciation. I also like the example that you gave of like you practicing what it's like to disconnect and being aware of it. And for me, what would also come up is, how do I change what's my relationship to your disconnect? Do
Right.
I now suddenly want to punish you and pull away? um,
Right.
do I stay open but feel sad do I employ a strategy? Like, do I notice that I'm now trying to please you and make you come in? Now, there's all these things that we can learn about ourselves from a really simple game like this, you know?
Well, I did not plan this. Let me take a drink first. I when I listened to your recording that I couldn't attend, I've been sitting on this concept, and there's some things I've been reading and just sort of thinking to myself about. And I wasn't sure how to weave it into this conversation, and here it comes. I think the topic in general, what was being discussed on that call, was about how to not say too much or too little, or kind of get out of your own way as far as discussions. And what I kept landing on is, simply put, just be you, but openness. And you've just brought it up too. I might have led you there, but we got there together.
Mm-hmm.
When you say someone is open-hearted, or for those of us who get down with chakras or things like that, open-hearted from that, you have an openness even with people who have a disconnection. That doesn't mean sacrificing yourself or leaving yourself open, for, I would argue there is no need to have a defense. You just are where you are. I wonder, have you talked through anything, created anything about that openness or lack thereof? Not even a baseline of openness, because that's probably what I would have said maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. Like, you must always be open. You have to. That's really not what I'm saying anymore. I'm changing my mind. You are open even with those that are disconnected, meaning you're meeting the person where they are, but you're still respecting yourself and your own openness. It's just who you're talking to may not give you that access, and that's okay. Whatever the moment is, I'll say it all is well. So have you had any thoughts on kind of incorporating that into some of your dojo, or does that even kind of
it's not like we teach about openness, but we do practice it. And here's how I see it, and it ties back to what you said about, it's really easy to say being open-hearted is like, that's the way to go, and and I would agree with that. It's what I aspire to as well. But we impact each other all the time, right? As we interact, you may say something, somehow it hits me in a tender spot. I take it personally. I hurt. Okay. If I stay open, I can be with that hurt. I can even see that it has nothing to do with you. I can feel the hurt. I can let it pass. I can keep my love towards you instead of hardening, all of that. We go through daily lives. We're interacting with so many people. Like, if you count social media, even more, right? Everything right. We see is impacting us in some way. If we're completely open-hearted, I had this, after I did an 8-day retreat where I was a mentor in authentic relating as well. And afterwards, I went back to the airport, and then I got treated really coldly by the airline. And I kept an open heart interacting with this person. I just felt so much pain. And then I was like, I'm going to watch a Netflix show. And, the character went through something painful, and I would feel all that pain. I was like, wow, I'm processing emotions of a fictional character. Like, right. Is this healthy? I don't know. Maybe I'm more open than I can handle right now. And I slowly closed it again. And I think that's my point. Like, our openness should match our capacity to handle impact. And that's what we practice over time, staying open in the face of impact. And that's definitely what we do in the dojo, because we're really paying attention to impact, and we're staying open, and we're staying with each other and committing to staying with each other no matter what happens. But I think that's the thing. There's a limit to what we can process without it overwhelming us. And by staying just a little bit more open, we train that, and we get more open over time. But if you're a 3-year-old with a very fragile nervous system compared to a 40-year-old, and you're just wide open and into the world, like, it can be really painful. At some point, you're gonna learn to close until you grow stronger and more resilient for dealing
It,
with.
well, it could. I'm going to go a little deep here.
Yeah,
So, you ready to dive in a little bit with me?
always. Yeah,
Um, so it's easier to say than to practice. To say that I am not my thoughts. Pep is not my thoughts. Pep is not even. Pep's not even the human, skin that he's in, or me, or anything else. We are at the core the awareness of all the things that we are feeling, or the movie that's playing in front of us in this real life, and even the thoughts internally and all the chatter and all the things that might be good or bad or anything. We're the awareness of all of it. And I know at a certain level that some people can feel like, well, then my identity gets lost in that. Like I can't do that. And for those that may feel that, that's okay. That's where you're at. Um, if we're in the seat of awareness, if you will, and all these external things and even the internal thoughts are just drifting in and out, just like you said, like you were having this fictional character, moment of like going through their pain, but that is really just your thought,
hmm,
not taking away from what you felt. But if you have an openness within your own awareness, and I'm not putting it into words probably, well enough, I'll get there. I'm kind of sitting on something. I'm in sort of a thinking stage of my life. I'm not sure how long it'll go, but it'll go a little bit longer. Um, I think you can have an openness within your awareness, even if you're not sharing it with the world, yet anyway.
yeah,
Um, I'll give another example of this, and you and I can talk about this on our next episode or sometime. But the short story of it is, I went to a karmic release workshop a couple weekends ago,
right. Yeah, I
and
remember you texting about it.
and there, yeah, we were, and so there's a lot of beautiful things that happen in that. But one of it, because there's an element of muscle testing, which is testing your body. It's not testing whether the statement is true or false or yes or no. It's just saying this is what your body tests strong with. This is what it tests weak with.
Yeah,
The old adage of, if you're allergic to wheatgrass and you hold it up like this, if I'm holding it in my hand and someone pushes on it, if you're holding wheatgrass and you're allergic, it's going to test weak. You'll be able to push your arm down. If you're holding an orange or an apple or something that to you organically feels healthy, you'll be able to test strong. It's not about your actual strength. It's your body's physiology. So translate that to then things about like hidden motives and what are you really feeling underneath the stuff. And I was blown away. And I knew that I would be. I did not realize the level. So fast forward to say, many other things I could say, but fast forward to say, we were going through hidden modes of survival, things like greed, because that helped you survive, if you hoard resources.
yeah,
Playing a victim, you play a victim in a tribe, the tribe's going to protect you because you're being victimized. So those are survival things that, by and large, we don't need anymore to a certain extent. Um, we got to the word hate, of a hidden motive, 10 of them total. And I was like, I don't think I hate anything. Very much me, right? I don't think I hate anything. I love everything. Everything's great. Uh, yeah. So great in concept, but so then we got to the end of that section. I was like, oh, I know one thing I hate. I really, really hate a lack of control. And so we started. The instructor started muscle testing that. Short story is something to do with either, why I have hate or anger, or why I don't like lying. All of those things I tried to explain. Well, it's this and that. And the instructor's testing. Tom, I've had him on several times. Tom was testing. He's like, "That's not it, Adam. That's not it either. That's still not it. That sounds really good. That's not it."
yeah. I know those.
The the trifecta for me, which I can openly say, in my awareness, I want to be liked, which was really hard for me to hear, because I know it and I'm like, no, I don't want to be liked. I'm good. on a physiological level, I want to be liked, and I also want to be valued, and I also don't like being part of a lie. So if I'm working for a company or working for someone that I don't feel is being truthful, well, I could be mad at that person for lying, or I could be mad at this person for, whatever. I don't want to be part of the lie. That's the part I don't, because I want to be liked and I want to be valued and I don't want to be part of a lie. So I I have gone through some really good things in the past week and a half. It feels like the me from before that person passed away. Rest in peace. I'm really happy you got me to this point. But now that I can openly talk about this more and really mean it, um, I have to choose to be part of that lie
Mhm.
and be okay with it, because there's the only person I can really be upset about is me, which those are three gigantic rocks for me. I don't know if they're the biggest. I don't know if they're the only ones, but they're huge. And so tying back to what you've been talking about, having openness in a conversation, even if the other person's disconnected, if I'm aware, if I have an awareness, okay, this particular me likes to be liked and likes to be valued. So I can sit that to the side. I know that's something that goes on within me, and still stay open in whatever level I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I, as a baseline, or as like I keep thinking that should happen first before trying to decide how much is too much talking or too little talking. But yours kind of does not the reverse, but um, I feel like there's a I feel like there's a way, if you'd consider it, to include that as part of a teaching and openness. Or you have a volunteer over here that will help provide suggestions about it.
Yeah.
Does that what comes up for you when I
Yeah. I
have
love
a
it.
moment?
Okay, I'm how to say, my heart is cheering listening to this, and um, it's also how I like to approach things for myself and with people I've worked with for a long time. 'Cause especially the example you gave, like I think at some point it becomes crucial to kind of cut through all the layers of bullshit, and I would say that the more skills we acquire, right, whether it's um, intellectual, somatically, spiritually, physically, the more we can use to bullshit ourselves. Right?
Yep.
It's just becoming more advanced bullshit. And at some point, like at the heart, what I always find is like at the heart, things are usually really simple. Like if I
Yep.
let my heart speak, it's something like that. It's like what you say, I just really want you to like me right now. That's
Right.
the real, like underneath it all, that's what's going on. Or I love you, I care for you, and it pains me that I can't control your experience to make it more pleasant for you. like
That's right.
these are the truthful things. And ideally, and that's something that we do practice in the dojo, is like over time you build the self-awareness and the spaciousness to figure that out before you speak, like you say. And and if it's inescapable, if it's there, we can even say it out loud. Partly what I'm saying is motivated by this, and I don't know any way to say it without that intention tainting it, but I still want to speak. So like, and let's try and separate it, because there's a message for you in here, and my wording's a little bit muddled up because I want you to like me. Maybe I'm being softer, whatever. Like, we can talk about all of that. But part of what I wanted to do with the workshop that you joined is, and this goes back to the levels of access. Like, if I'm going to teach what you just described, anyone who doesn't have that level of self inquiry yet, or even being able to face it, will find it unusable. And it is
Right.
actually, it's highly usable. It's, to me, what you're saying is the most usable thing. So inside the dojo, we'll do things like that. But then if there's like a public access thing, like a workshop, I'll only include things that can work for anyone, even if they have if they would have zero self-awareness. Like, okay, how are we going to do this? So my tools were rather surface. If I remember correctly, I said something like, just speak the way you would normally speak. exactly as you would, and add these things, right? Like, and then these things will help you. And the reason I would do that is this way, someone who is completely new to any practice can take it and then bring it into their world. But if they want to go deeper, then they can learn more things in the dojo, like what you are sharing. Um, it's something that I got from my dad at some point. I think my dad literally told me this. He said something like the most insightful things that you have to offer to people, or the most practical or applicable things that could really save their life, are worthless to those people if you don't take them all the way to where they live and what their experience is like. Like, you have
Yeah.
to find a way to make it smaller and smaller and smaller until it reaches that person. Um, yeah, so that's like, my tweets don't go deep, right? Like, in comparison to the emails, and it's the same thing. I'll just write something really, really on, basic, but maybe it gets people a foot in the door, and then, like, it takes them there. That's the idea.
Well, I think it's a great idea. So I'm grateful for your father for sharing that with you, whatever age he did, to you. the I'm trying to think of how it's framed, but there's certainly, I've seen this statement several times that a person that knows something, if they're really knowledgeable of a particular subject, that's great, and they're an expert in it or whatever else. But I think the going meme now would be, explain it to me like I'm five.
Right.
Even an expert in their field, if they can't, you and I might even talked about this the last episode. I apologize if I'm not remembering that. Um, but if you're an expert in your field, but you still can't explain it to someone who doesn't really know much of anything and put it into words or lack thereof that they can't meet, you're really not the expert you think that you are, and that's okay. I mean, that just might mean you're on a more academic level, but to be able to break it down in simple bite-sized things, kind of like you're mentioning you're doing, it not only does it show a higher skill level, but it also shows that you don't need to like hide behind big words or these large grandiose ideas. Like, you're doing it for a different purpose, or a different intent, and you're unattached to the result, in as much as you're not trying to say, all right, person, you're here, you need to change all these things and go here. they'll
Yeah.
they'll move in whatever timeline they're supposed to be in this life. None is bad and none is good. It's just whatever the timeline is. um, there's a lot of gratitude when you can take that type of approach, and I have a lot of gratitude for you being able to simplify things when you feel called to, and then go deep when you're called to as well. I mean, it shows. Here's a better way I can say this. If someone really likes a sport, like if you really like martial arts and you're so much into it, but you have to have it at the highest level, it's always got to be better. It's always got to be this. You can't really turn around and just practice simple moves, because that's not as
Right.
fun.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you're like chasing the high. You're chasing the dragon. If you're using a drug term, you've got to always be at the biggest, best, everything else. But if you're just there playing games, like you've been so apt at for 11 years, um, you're just enjoying wherever the moment is, wherever. That's a huge thing, and I am sure, I'm convinced that the group that you talk with and the new people that come in and out, um, are really grateful for that, for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
you're welcome.
you're reminding me of something. Mind if I share like a little
Go
story?
for it. Yeah.
It's a conclusion that we came to in one of the dojo sessions, and it really, like, that chasing the dragon element really reminds me of it. Um, I wrote on my blog somewhere about six different levels of conversational depth. And we practice the deepest one a lot in the dojo because it's just something that people don't often go to. And so I want people to have that experience and that skill. It's a level of connection that is rare. So we were practicing it a lot, and we were practicing moving between the different levels in a conversation, so that when you are in a natural conversation like we're having now, that people have the skills to find ways to take it deeper should they want to invite the other
Right.
person deeper. And then, in between the sessions, people often play with these things in their personal life. So the next session, we were discussing, well, how did that go? And I think both people in the session like went to some kind of social mixer after, and they said, well, the hardest part was the surface levels.
Right.
I'm really fluent in this deep communication now, but then I was at this like social mixer, and it's like, wow, how do I do this? Everyone's so good, at this like surface level stuff, and for me, it's challenging. And
Right.
but then they found a way because we practiced that. But it was interesting that the handicap, so to speak, was not at the deep end; it was at the shallow end.
That's right.
And yeah, what
Because that's where they have less practice now. So,
exactly?
and they don't like being in the shallow end either.
Yes,
Shallow end's not fun.
and so the conclusion was that just because it's a term, I'm using this term differently, so I'm going to say that it's not derogatory for me. It means literally what it means: normies. So people who embody the norm, right?
Right.
The conclusion was this: like, we are here in this course. However, never forget that normies have the best social skills. And And what I mean with that is not like, yeah, they don't, in general, most people will not have a conversation as deep as we're having here. But they have the
Right.
best social skills as normies because they can walk in any room, and most people will also be normie. And so they'll
Right.
know exactly how to interact with that. And, it's an interesting thing that you can be deeply entrenched in the study of social skills and not have that because you're removed from normality, so to speak.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that's a little bit what you're saying. And I see it in musicians as well. I'm a musician as well. So like when you play music for a decade, you develop a taste for like the dissonant, the jazzy, the complex, whatever thing you're into. If it's like jazz or metal, at some point you'll like that. You'll like the technicality and the things that surprise you. But really, and then people would often say that pop music is not real music or it's lame. But then if you think about it, it is it is the music that resonates with most people on earth, right? Like if that's
Right.
not powerful and well designed and well played music, I don't know what is, right? It's a skill issue to not be able to enjoy pop music and play it with soul, to require that level of complexity. And so the same is true about this. Like, can we enjoy small talk as much as the deepest conversation? Like, embody that range and understand our own preferences and invite people towards them, you know, and see if it's a match.
Well, the since you're going to music, it kind of makes me think of this. I'll stay on pop music, even though I really want to go to a symphony, but I'm going to stay on pop music. It's if you look at it, it's almost an inversion for normies and for someone who wants a deeper conversation. So there's in pop music, just like with any other music, there's an understanding of a beginning, a middle, and an end of a song. There might be a chorus, but those spaces in between, I keep holding up like I can see, those spaces between the notes are as important. How can something sound loud if something doesn't also sound soft?
Yeah.
And the inversion where you may already know, I have a feeling you already know, but so if you're involved with a normal conversation, you're talking about the weather or how was your weekend, and not really wanting to know about what the weekend, but you just kind of want to you want to get the okay to kind of go on to whatever you're wanting to talk about. Or someone who's deeply spiritual, or into deep conversations, that's the less fun part. But
Yeah.
for normies, that's kind of what they want to do. Like they just want to blow off steam. They want to just talk about nothing, but it's fun to just talk about nothing. Like that's the enjoyable part. And then it's the inverse for us who want to get really deep, because that's fun. A normie listening to it be like, I don't know, he said a bunch of words and like he was really passionate. That sounded great, but like I would just wanted to get back to talking about the game that was on Saturday night because like that catch was
Right.
amazing.
Yes.
So if you like, whether it's a pop song or a symphony or anything else, the mosaic of our life has these mundane things in the eye of the beholder, and it has these really cool things, but both of them are important.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to spend a day saying I was bored and it was beautiful, that's actually a good thing. For me, that'd be a little harder, but I'm getting better about that. Like, yeah, it was a good day, but it might not feel like it's a lot of movement. Um, I'm not sure how we could turn that into a game, but this was really fun to kind of talk through. Because I feel like that could possibly get me closer to enjoying kind of those normal conversations. I actually went to 2 social gatherings in the last week, and for a little bit, I had maybe some kind of deeper conversations, but most of it was on the surface level. And thankfully, at this point, I can embrace not needing to go there because, not so long ago, I would have wanted to go there in every conversation. I was just looking for the next opening to kind of be able to talk deep. But I've had so many deep conversations that have like just come up kind of spur of the moment that I'm okay to have a normie conversation for a little bit of time. It can be a little draining for me. So I can only go so far, but I'm okay with both. It's if it helps the other person in either just getting through, the party or whatever else, that can also be okay. That could be acceptable to me. Not everyone wants to go deep, and that's just not where they're at. I can choose where I want to spend my time, where I don't. Um,
Yeah.
that was really cool. I appreciate bringing up music. I didn't. If you told me you were a musician, I didn't. I don't know if I recalled that. What instruments do you play?
I mostly sing, but I play guitar and piano to it. Like I learned them as instruments, but the role they tend to take for me now is to support singing or songwriting. Like I don't intend to become a virtuoso in either of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some um, I'm going to express gratitude to you right now for something that hasn't happened yet, at least in this timeline. But some timeline you and I have already sang together. I'm a singer too.
Amazing. Yeah.
Some some timeline we've already sang together. So I'm going to express gratitude for when that happens and gets pulled into this timeline. Whenever it happens, it'll happen. That'll be great.
Well, if we ever meet in person, and I'm sure we will, then we're gonna make that happen. We're just gonna do that.
Sounds great. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds great.
It's amazing to sing together with multiple voices and have them harmonize.
Harmonization is even when maybe the notes or the voices or the the music itself can feel really simple. Just the combination of harmonizing voices makes it really really beautiful in a elegant way. I agree with you. I'm really looking forward to it, and it won't be if, it'll be when. It'll be when. Um, with that was fun. Thank you. Has there
Thank
been
you.
anything surprising? Has there been anything surprising for the dojo since you launched it?
Mhm.
Anything from your perspective? I don't know what attachment you've had to the results or where you think it's going, or if you're just playing, you're just seeing where it goes, which I think you do a really great job at. But has there been anything that's been surprising?
Let's see. So it's only been open since February, so that's 2 months now, and I think it took 3 weeks for the first member to join. So overall, we've had like 6 weeks of dojos, something like that, or is it eight? I don't count, but something like that. So it's fairly fresh. The main thing I can say is it's really unpredictable what people will get out of it. It surprises me a lot. Like there is a curriculum that is, of course, building, the skills that are underneath everything. But yeah, the biggest moments have happened in between that. Just like things that came up and that we worked with, things that happened in people's personal lives, um, things that came up in interactions, between members, because it's not like a teacher to everyone experience. I facilitate and I do teach here and there, but the dynamic is very much, everyone learns from each other too. And yeah, that's been really surprising to see how much, like just how much of an emphasis there was on that.
Right.
Um, I'm thinking yeah, I think that's the main thing. Mostly because it's still fresh. It's a fresh format. I've only been doing it for 2 months. Another thing that I noticed is the shape of the container seems to work really well, where it's not a weekend thing.
Good.
It's not a set timeline or a full week immersion. It's really everyone can choose their pace, and it allows for a level of deviation if needed that I like. Where like if it was a 12-week cohort, for example, I always keep my sessions spacious enough that things can come up, that there is space for some spontaneous, side quests or whatever. But if we have a 12-week cohort, at some point there are times where I have to say, look, this thing that matters to you, we cannot fit in the group right now, because otherwise we'll only get to week 11 by week 12, and then that's the
Right.
last. Now it's different. There is like a way where we can check in with everyone in the call. Would this serve you as well? Would it? Okay, then we just do the entire call on this thing because everyone agrees, right? And if not, then there are other ways. There, maybe I explore it in a one-on-one with that person or something. But it happens a lot that people just feel something or have something they want to learn, and it just happens to be what everyone else is also experiencing, that I
Yeah.
wouldn't have known, that I wouldn't have brought myself. And then we just change the entire session and work with that, and that's been really, really useful, because it's a bit more tailored, a bit more personalized. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I had this visual as you were talking, of you leading a group of cavers. I don't know why I thought of a cave. I don't know why that was. And within this cave of awareness, if you will, each of us has put some big rocks in there, things that might be blockers, or that's the kind of lens I'm thinking of. But there's also some really great things too. And all you're doing really is, I know your term is experimenting, but you're exploring that cave. And yeah,
Yeah.
you could get to the end of it, but what fun is getting to the end of the song? Like, just enjoy the song, decide what places you want to play with. Um, so you're shining a light on particular areas, and you might want to spend more time here, spend more time there. You might not get through the entire thing in 12 weeks. That's kind of what I hear you saying about it. And I like that you've landed on a format that you feel like you're able to meet people where they are, and
Right.
depending on the mix of people. And along the way, and I hope you give yourself credit for this, um, wherever wherever people are, you're holding space for them. You're holding that tour space for them to go through in whatever kind of mechanism or path they are. There isn't a particular path for someone, and people can be on similar path for a little bit, and then they go off to different places. All of it being the way it's supposed to be or meant to be.
Yeah.
Um, I'm really grateful for you making the time to do this. I know you felt called to it, so but I'm grateful that you put it, pen to paper, so to speak, for it. I found it extremely beneficial, just with the amount of time that I've taken part of it. And once we close off the podcast here, I'll put links out to your X account and to your. Is X the best place, or is there a website that they can
Yeah,
go
there is a
to?
website. It's peptalksblog.com. Yeah.
Okay. I
And
will. I'll put all that information on the podcast. Um,
thank you. Yeah, I felt really touched by
take
what
us.
you said about participating, and
What's that?
I felt really touched by what you just shared about having participated so far and how that impacted you.
Thank you. Yeah. But thank you that I don't need to be liked. I got to make sure I preface that. I'm only doing it because I'm grateful. This is my own. This is my own sort of practice. I've even been talking with, yeah, I say normies, people at work. Like I've openly made statements where I've gone to say something and I'm like, nope. I just want to say that and want to be heard because I want to be liked. So I'm going to sit that comment to the side. It's me kind of having to joke and being playful with myself. It's not me being hard on myself. It's a
Yeah.
way of staying open in a, you know, recently but previously vulnerable state. I'm just having fun with it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's
Yes. Humor and play is really like it makes all the hard things. It just changes their shape.
right.
It just
It
yeah.
does.
It
Yeah.
makes it fun, makes it bearable, and makes you want to do it. Yeah.
There's a I want to share a story with you, and then you can wrap us up. So I'd had this again. These are I discovered or had or was helped to discover those kind of three big rocks. Again, there may be more. I'm not fixed. It doesn't mean anything. You just there's a light shined on it. I cleaned some of the gunk out, and I was given tools really to kind of continue keeping myself unblocked. When I was reinserted into the matrix, the working world, and all that, Monday was really good. Tuesday was really good. Wednesday was like some stuff that it was meant to be that I was given like my first shit test, if you will. I had some back to back calls that were really difficult for me, and I was getting right back into the frame of mind of just tying myself to those rocks without really realizing it. The day ended. I took a little drive for myself and I had a conversation to myself. I said, Self, you know, the things that you're really mad about is that you want to be liked. So that's why you don't want to have to take this news back to this customer because you want to be liked. You
Yeah.
do. You want to be valued. So that's why you want to give feedback to the company. But the company's, they're companies being who they are right now. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just where they are. So the only person you're really upset about is you wanting to have more value than the role you hold right now, which is not making myself small. It's just making myself real. And then the last part is about lying. When a company takes one direction and then they have to change and do whatever else, that again is just the company and the leaders in it doing what they need to do, and it's actually it's the appropriate thing. And I had that conversation with myself because it really is all me in a non-ego way, meaning it's just my perception that is the problem. It's not anything outside. The world's just being the world. Just like with any of us, traffic's going to be traffic. Someone's not going to be nice to you. Someone's going to be kind. It's going to be back and forth. And Thursday and Friday were a tremendously beautiful set of days, even more so than Monday or Tuesday, and nothing changed on the outside. Everything changed on the inside. It was all my perception. So I just want to encourage everyone in whatever place that you are to embrace that the moment is perfect, even if it sucks. Because it really doesn't suck. It's just thoughts. It's just things that are happening. Everything can be different. You just choose to meet the moment where it is, and the next moment will be better. That seemingly simple and silly example, but made at least all the difference for me, and I think it can for other people too if you look at it that way. Anyhow, Pep, take us home. What do you want to send us off with?
Wow. I'm receiving this and I'm like, whoa, that's a big responsibility. So a way to close it off. Let me see.
Well, you've done so many of these with me, and you'll do so many more. I mean, if there's no pressure, there's no
Yeah.
pressure.
Let me see what's really here right now. So I don't know why, but there's something coming up for me about like of finding out, and maybe it's coming up because of your story. I don't know, but like that our work here is to learn to love the world. to love the world, and then to find how we can love the world actively, through
Yep.
what we have to give to others, but also how we can love it through forgiveness, right? Like everything that you just described, it's like realizing that, like what, that's how I see it. What's out there that's not forgiven by me yet for its
Right.
mere existence? Oh,
That's right.
people will dislike me. Oh, the company's doing what they have to do, and like all of that. That's the work, I think. And it's challenging, but I think that's something we both share. Um, that we feel that, and then we're finding our way towards it, how to love it, how to love others.
Well, your message resonates very much with me because when you the external world is a mirror of us, each of us. And so if you don't like what's in the mirror, you don't throw the mirror out and get a new mirror unless you want to get a funhouse mirror or something that makes it looks nice and silly. You adjust your perception of what you see in the mirror. That's just the external world. I mean, that's what I so your words of learn to love or embrace loving everything, even the good, the bad, the indifferent, the boring, the mundane, the deep, the normies, all that. That is really what that means to me. I appreciate you calling that out very, very much. Brother, as always, thank you very much. Thank you for all who've watched. Look forward to the next time, and hang on for a moment, Pep. All right. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.